So, in talking about the different modes of transportation, we have to think about infrastructure because without proper infrastructure, freight doesn't move. So, our infrastructure are our roads, canals, bridges, um, all of the things that we drive across, railroad tracks, and then when we think about how they have to be maintained and improved, of course, we know that infrastructure improvements have not kept pace with the expansion of global commerce. Um, the amount of global commerce and the demand of global commerce and the how fast with technology improvements and stuff that global commerce took off and online ordering and stuff, we just haven't been able to keep up with all of the infrastructure improvements needed. Another issue is that infrastructure improvements are almost always financed by government. Okay? And we have multiple agencies that manage those. So anytime we look at a road construction project or laying new railroad or looking at building an airport or offering a new airport, shipping ports, canals, widening canals, and all of that kind of stuff, we have to one schedule time for those construction projects to happen. We have to find funding for them either through legislation or grants. And so it takes a lot of time and effort in order to fund infrastructure and make sure that it's taken care of. When we think about making sure that our bridges are strong so they don't collapse underneath roads, making sure that our railroads are maintained so trains don't derail or have breakdowns or problems. One of the things, for example, would be looking at when the Ever Given got stuck in that canal at Lick Springs. So they're looking at deepening and widening that canal so they don't have that issue again. Many years ago, the Panama Canal was also widened and deepened to accommodate larger ships. There are some things like gas price, so built into the price that you pay for gas is a infrastructure maintenance. So there's an amount already built in. Okay? So if you can see in the textbook, if you look, it says that as of 2017, the American Society of Civil Engineers gave grades to U.S. infrastructures. So we have pretty much a grade of D all of the way across for the condition that our infrastructure is in and how well it is suited to handle the current amounts of traffic. The next thing that the chapter talks about are the various measures and metrics that we use for transportation and why having metrics is important. Okay, so one, managing strategic initiatives. So, are we meeting our goals? If we're not meeting our goals, what do we need to meet our goals? If part of our strategic initiative is launching a new product, then knowing that we have the transportation logistics available to launch that product, um, keeping KPIs of stuff that's happening across our strategic initiatives to appraise and develop suppliers. So keeping a scorecard on our suppliers to see how well that they are doing their job, serving us, how long it's taking them to get things to us, and rating them. Service to customers. Are we having on-time deliveries? So that's one of the main things when we're talking about transportation and logistics. Are we having on-time deliveries? Are products being dented or damaged during delivery? Are logistics networks? Are there ways to save money? Like right now, if we're using rail and water and air, is there a way to add in motor in order to save money, to reduce our dependency on maybe air, which is very expensive? And then return and reverse logistics. So if our customers have returns or want to send items back to us, how do we deal with that, and how do we provide transportation and logistics to our customers for that? When we look at key performance indicators, so some of the rules of key performance indicators are that we should allow for multi-year comparison of performance. So we should look for trends. They should provide a view of how an organization is doing in terms of their inbound and outbound transportation. So how are we at receiving and how are we at delivering? And our KPIs should also be understandable, unambiguous, and easily measured. A good rule of thumb for KPIs is that you follow the SMART goals rule: specific, measurable, attainable, relatable, and timely. Okay? There's a list of variety of key performance indicators that you would use for transportation and logistics, such as on-time pickup and deliveries, fuel efficiencies, loading and unloading times, freight costs per item shipped, per pallet shipped, driver turnover, cost per mile, etc. When we're managing our transportation, one of the things that we always want to be wary of is our rates. So, what are the current rates that we are paying? And are there ways that we can negotiate those rates in order to lower them? When we're looking at our logistics thumbprint, how do we want to look at optimal transportation modes? What are the different intermodal combinations that we want to look at? And what are the different carriers available? Do we have a lot of options for carriers, in which case we get to choose the best option for us, or are there limitations because of our location? We want to make shipment routing and tracking decisions. Are we going to provide tracking so customers can see tracking information? We're going to use technology to make sure that we can pay attention to our tracking along the way. Do we put GPS systems on all of our trucks? Where do we see opportunities for consolidation and break bulk? Um, so where can we consolidate or share containers with other companies in a way to save money? Or where can we take advantage of bulk shipping opportunities and save money by shipping more items at the same time? Okay. And then we want to provide a variety of our performance reports and pay attention to those KPIs that we have identified as important for measurement. When we're looking for our mode of transportation and our carrier selection, we go through a 5-step decision-making process. The first one is determining what is our problem. What are we trying to ship and where are we trying to ship it to? Then we're going to collect information. What carriers are available? Which ones go to our destination? How much do they charge? What are our options for intermodal decision? Once we've researched all of our available options, we're going to make a selection or choose one of the options. We implement that option, and then we do a post-choice evaluation. After a couple of months or a year, we'll say, okay, how well is this implementation working? How are its KPIs measuring up with our expectations? And then we provide feedback to that carrier, and we either continue working with them or we start the selection process all over again, where we do research and look for a new carrier. We want to use one or just a few carriers to transport our freight so that we can establish those relationships with them. When we have good carrier shipper relationships, we as the shipper understand what the carrier's requirements are, and we make sure that our freight closely matches those requirements. So what box size? How do they like things packaged? What makes it easier and lower cost for us for stacking pallets? What shape and size of boxes? What weight of boxes? How should we prepare our deliveries? for example. And then we should use technology to optimize the cost and service of our relationships. When we have a good relationship with our carriers, between the carriers and shippers, we'll have a win-win relationship where everybody is winning from that. When we look at different outsourcing opportunities for transportation, we can use third party transportation, partnerships, or strategic alliances. So, with those third party transportations, we outsource transportation to another company rather than trying to do our own transportation. This is very common for companies so they don't have to deal with the cost of maintaining their own trains, their own semis, their own container ships, etc. We just outsource to someone else. For strategic partnerships and alliances, this is creating a relationship between our shippers and our carriers so that we cooperate to make our logistics at the lowest cost possible. So we work together in order to figure out those best intermodal, the best piggybacking kind of things that we're looking at. Okay? And then we're going to continue the last couple of slides on the next video.